So Dave Portnoy just bought back Barstool from the company he sold it to 3 years ago, and he did it for $0. At least that's how the headline reads. Today, we're going to break down and go beyond the headline to explain what this means, because this is huge news in the creator space. Dave Portnoy is a massive name. Barstool is huge, and news like this doesn't happen often. So we're going to go deeper beyond the headline so you can understand what this really means. So welcome back to Creators Tea, the show where we spill the tea on the creator business. And today we're talking all about the new Barstool acquisition from its original founder. So how we're going to break this down, because it is a lot more to it than the headline reads. We're going to break down a thread on Twitter, or I guess X, from Adam Ryan. This is the best breakdown that I've seen, so we're going to use it. Thanks, Adam. And go follow him if you want. So the Barstool deal is the talk of Twitter. The company was sold for $500 million to Penn in 2020. So for some more context, if you're brand new to this, Penn is a gambling company that purchased Barstool, the big social media brand, as a goal to drive traffic and signups for its sportsbook and its other gambling business efforts. So 3 years later, Portnoy acquired 100% of the brand back for $0. But that's not the whole truth. Here's what really happened. And we're going to get into that in a second. But this is the first time in a very long time that Portnoy has owned 100% of the Barstool brand. As he grew, he gave some percentage of the ownership to early employees. And then he also had some initial investment or some later investment that diluted his ownership. So this is the first time in a long time that he's been fully running the show. So let's dive deeper into what this means for Penn, Barstool, Portnoy, everyone. So Penn announced today they became the official sportsbook of ESPN, which I'm sure was the big push for this. So ESPN is obviously a lot bigger than Barstool in some ways, and then not really in others, but in the ways that matter, obviously they deem ESPN is more important. So ESPN gets 117 million unique visitors per month versus Barstool Sports gets 8 million. This is definitely not social related, which you can see right here. It's in terms of search traffic. It's nowhere close. See the picture below. And the picture does not paint a good one for Barstool, with the blue being ESPN and the red way down below being Barstool. ESPN is Goliath and Barstool is David. This is a huge win for Penn. I don't know if that's totally fair. Obviously, search traffic is very important because it is high intent, but Barstool's not really all that concerned with search traffic nearly as much as they do try to dominate on social. So it's kind of apples and oranges there. Obviously, they've deemed that this is kind of important, that search traffic does drive results. And so that's why they've made the switch. But Barstool does have a blog. They have a website. They don't have nearly the size of the team or the legacy, the ranking authority, the backlinks, any of this stuff that ESPN does. So looking at these metrics isn't really fair in the first place, but it is something worth looking at if you're trying to drive business. And clearly these people are making way more money than I have that make these decisions. So they probably looked into this stuff. But moving on. For Penn, the Barstool Sports acquisition did not help them capture the market as they hoped. And that was obviously the entire goal of that acquisition. In Illinois, Penn has the 7th largest handle of sportsbook books with 3.7 of the market. Compare this to FanDuel with 43% and DraftKings at 31%. Not so great. So obviously they're trailing behind the big guys. And that was the whole goal of buying Barstool, was to help shrink that gap and hopefully grow beyond that. On top of that, what makes Stoolies go crazy is Portnoy and the team's pirate ship attitude at Barstool. So Stoolie is just any name for a Barstool fan. That's what they call their fans, if you didn't know that. And Portnoy is obviously the original founder of Barstool, and they definitely know how to stir up controversy, which big corporations and government bodies don't like, but it's really what's made them successful. So as much as Penn may not love the fact that he causes drama, it's kind of one of those things where you knew what you were getting into. It's how they grew their entire business. So they go on to say, this attitude has caused Penn issues time after time with maintaining good standing with regulators. So regulators are going to be harder to deal with than people on social media typically, because there's a lot more things at play. And so when Barstool or Dave Portnoy would cause some drama, or there was things that were even beyond their control, but they were related to, they're now associated with the Penn stock and the Penn brand. And so the stock would rise and fall with these news cycles, making it incredibly volatile and also tough to work with regulators, which they need to, seeing as gambling is their main priority as a business. So that makes things tough, but I don't know how they didn't see that coming. Whatever, moving on. What makes Barstool loved by their fans and a good place to promote sports betting is also what makes them a nightmare for regulation. You took the words out of my mouth, Adam. Compare that to Disney-owned ESPN, who canceled their Barstool partnership after one show due to misaligned values. So that's also not entirely true. I do have some information there. They at once started a show and it only ran for one episode. That's because the previous head of ESPN was not a fan of Barstool. So that's telling a tiny piece of the overall story there. So that's why Penn wants out. It makes sense strategically, financially, and operationally to align with ESPN. That's tough to argue. So they just gave Penn back to Dave for free? Question mark? Not exactly. So this is where it gets juicy. So part of the deal is that Barstool has a non-compete with Penn. Before the Penn acquisition, the largest advertising client of Barstool was sportsbooks, which makes total sense. They talk a lot about sports. Sports fans love to gamble. Now, no money is coming in from their best profile of clients, which puts constraints on the business. Because obviously before, what made them very profitable was the sponsorships coming from sportsbooks. And now they're owned by a sportsbook, meaning they wouldn't be competing from everyone else. And they don't have that, they don't have that energy. They don't have that money source that came from a sports book, which obviously would hurt their bottom line and make them make way less money. Again, something I don't know how they didn't see coming. On top of that, Barstool could not launch its own sports book. This is a small deal as it wasn't probable Dave would ever want to work with regulators, but it does cap the business's potential. So this is basically saying that they can't make their own sports book and they're not going to partner with Penn. Obviously, they're not going to compete with them either. Lastly, if Dave ever does a liquidation event or dividend, Penn gets 50% of the proceeds. So basically, if there ever was a reason to sell Barstool Sports, Penn would get 50%, a pretty large number. That's actually massive. In total, Penn gets 50% of profits of future liquidity. Barstool can't advertise on any sports books, and Barstool can't launch its own sport book, which is really, really huge. With that being previously the business's primary revenue source, and there's so much money in gambling, especially as it expands, Barstool is going to have to get creative in terms of where this money is. I'd be curious to see if this also incorporates offshore sports books, because there's tons of money in things like stake and other things that aren't done the conventional way in the US borders. So curious to see what they do here, but it does force them to get creative. So now let's break down what Dave gets from this whole buyback situation. Dave gets Barstool is back in his control, and no one can tell him what he can or can't say. To him, I'm sure that's priceless. He does really care about that. Portnoy just posted a blog on Barstool's site about his employees. The tags of the post are dumb morons and Rico Bosco. This is what the world expected. And for fun, I'll read this because it's usually pretty entertaining when Dave Portnoy speaks, and this is part of the story. So the blog post reads, I have an honest question. How fucking dumb are all my idiot employees? I've literally owned Barstool again for less than 24 hours. They know I'm in town, and literally none of them have showed up at the office today before 10 a.m. I've been here since 9 a.m. because I'm old and don't sleep anymore, and was reading all the news articles sucking my C for buying Barstool back. Anyway, back to the point. Nobody is here. It was so silent, I noticed how silent it was. And I'm not talking about valuable employees either. This isn't Murderer's Row of content. It's not Big Cat, PFT, or Alex Cooper. I'm talking about Smitty, Nate, Glenny Balls, Marty, Rico, Tommy Clemmer, Rico, etc. These are Barstool employees. Guys I could cut at the drop of a hat and nobody would notice, and they'd never find another job like this again. None of them are here. None of them thought to show up. Maybe early on day one of the new regime. I mean, seriously, how fucking dumb are these people? No wonder Penn gave it back to me for pennies on the dollar. I got the dumbest group of morons who ever lived. Wow. That is a lot. But that's on brand for Portnoy. So that doesn't really shock me too much. And I think he's very specific about hiring people that can kind of go with that leadership style. Obviously, that pushes off a lot of people, but it's also highly entertaining. So this is the beginning of the new regime. This is the breakdown of the transaction back to Portnoy's ownership. I'm very, very curious to see where they go. I'll probably make an episode in terms of how they make money and how they may make money in the future. So if you want to see that, make sure to click subscribe or subscribe in the podcast app that you're using. Or if you're here on YouTube, click it wherever it is. This is latest news. And so this is Creators Tea once again, where we spill the tea on the creator economy, the creator business. And so if you want to learn about that stuff, this is the show to help you do it. We'll be watching this story. So if you're interested in it, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next one. Keep creating. Peace.